Phil Hartman, the brilliant comic mind behind so many iconic Saturday Night Live characters, once designed album covers for bands before he ever considered stepping onto a comedy stage. Many fans don't realize that his creative beginnings were in graphic design, reflecting an artistic imagination that would later shape him into one of the most versatile comedic performers of his generation. Philip Edward Hartman was born on September the 24th, 1948, in Brantford, Ontario, Canada, into a family that would eventually number 8 children. The Hartmans emigrated to the United States when Phil was still young, seeking better opportunities. They settled first in Connecticut, then in Southern California. Growing up in a large family taught him early how to stand out, or not stand out, depending on the day. He was the quiet one at times, observing others, sketching doodles, and internalizing comedic possibilities from the chaos around him. But he also learned to use humor as a way to get attention or diffuse tension among siblings. He once joked that being in a family of 8 was like living in his own private comedy laboratory with no shortage of material, but that same environment taught him the power of subtlety. Unlike the brash cut-ups in the house, he found that a well-timed line or a precise observation could land more effectively than constant noisy antics. From an early age, Phil discovered a deep passion for art. He sketched relentlessly, comics, caricatures, imaginative designs. Whenever school classes ended, he often headed home to refine his craft or admired the album covers of rock legends, fascinated by their artistry. He dreamed of forging a career in design or advertising, a career that was creative yet less reliant on the unpredictable nature of stardom. So after high school, he enrolled at California State University Northridge, focusing on graphic arts. During these years, he even assisted in designing cover art for bands like Poco and America, forging a behind-the-scenes name that, while modest, fed his appetite for creation. But in parallel, he nurtured an amateur love of performance, dabbling in comedy clubs now and then, never imagining it could become a serious pursuit. Yet fate nudged him toward the stage. Los Angeles in the 1970s had a thriving comedy club scene, thanks in large part to venues like the Comedy Store and the Groundlings, where aspiring talents honed their craft nightly. Initially, Hartman visited these clubs, more as a curious spectator than a performer. But watching improvisational comedy at the Groundlings lit a spark. He saw comedic brilliance up close, felt the electricity of a live audience, and realized that humor, in many ways, paralleled his design work. Both required an eye for detail, a sense of structure, and an ability to surprise. Encouraged by friends, Phil auditioned for the Groundlings in 1975. He was accepted, diving wholeheartedly into improv training. This group demanded intense collaboration, quick thinking, and an innate comedic sense. He discovered he had a unique talent for mimicry and voices. He could shift from a slick game show host to a neurotic neighbor in a blink, wowing colleagues with his versatility. Performing alongside future giants like Paul Rubens and John Lovitz, Hartman quietly began building a reputation as the dependable glue of sketches. He wasn't the loudest or most flamboyant performer, but rather the anchor who could elevate a scene. He famously helped Paul Rubens shape the Pee-wee Herman character, co-writing Pee-wee's Big Adventure and polishing Pee-wee's comedic aesthetic, a move that taught Hartman how fulfilling collaborative creativity could be. The experience also confirmed his comedic identity. He was a performer who thrived on bringing other folks' ideas to life as much as his own. This generosity of spirit endeared him to many. By the mid-1980s, Hartman's comedic gifts caught the attention of Saturday Night Live, SNL producers. He joined the cast in 1986, part of an ensemble that revitalized the show after a few rocky seasons. Almost overnight, he became a standout presence, creating beloved characters like the slickly coiffed Bill Clinton, the monotone analyst on Sprockets, and a host of other unusual figures. He also gained notice for his uncanny impressions of personalities, like Frank Sinatra and Ronald Reagan. Castmates nicknamed him the Glue, referencing how his rock-solid presence helped hold sketches together. Off camera, he was humble, sometimes shy, yet always ready with a gentle grin that made colleagues feel at ease. In an environment notorious for outsized egos, Hartman's supportive nature stood out. Behind that comedic confidence, however, Phil navigated personal complexities. He'd been married twice before meeting Bryn Omdahl, a model and aspiring actress. By the time he met Bryn in 1986, he was a rising SNL star and voice actor, notably voicing roles for The Simpsons. Their romance blossomed fast, culminating in marriage in 1987. Initially, friends observed a harmonious couple. Bryn admired Phil's kindness and comedic brilliance, while he was drawn to her beauty and vivaciousness. They settled in Los Angeles after Hartman left SNL in 1994, transitioning to roles in comedic films and focusing on voice work. But over time, tensions brewed beneath the surface. Bryn struggled with personal insecurities and occasional substance abuse, while Phil, conflict-averse by nature, tended to withdraw when arguments flared. The couple had 2 children, a blessing that Phil cherished, but also an additional stress that tested the marriage. Amid these personal tensions, Hartman hit a professional high with News Radio, an NBC sitcom that premiered in 1995. He portrayed Bill McNeil, the pompous, vain, yet weirdly likable news anchor in an eccentric radio station setting. The cast included Dave Foley, Maura Tierney, and Andy Dick, each bringing comedic idiosyncrasies to the ensemble. Hartman's portrayal of Bill was a comedic masterclass. He rendered pompous lines with a blend of vanity and underlying vulnerability that made the character strangely endearing. Behind the scenes, the news radio team respected him greatly for his courtesy and comedic wisdom. He offered script ideas, timing tips, and quietly nurtured younger co-stars. Audiences, for their part, reveled in the show's quirky tone, hailing Bill McNeil as among the funniest comedic roles on TV at that time. One seldom discussed anecdote from the news radio years paints a poignant picture of who Phil Hartman was. During a stressful production week, a lighting technician experienced a personal crisis and broke down in tears during a break. Hartman quietly approached, offered a comforting arm, and told them that if they ever needed help, they could count on him. He even gave them his personal phone number, no questions asked. This gesture wasn't a publicity stunt or a flashy show of generosity. It was typical Phil. Empathetic, approachable, the kind of person who believed in small acts of kindness. He disliked drama, preferring gentle humor or thoughtful conversation to lighten tensions. Yet the quiet storm at home worsened. Bryn allegedly resented the disparity between their careers, growing jealous of his success. The couple argued often, especially when alcohol or substances entered the picture. Neighbors occasionally heard raised voices, but the next day Phil would appear at the store or on set with a calm face, rarely hinting at any domestic discord. His colleagues recall him as somewhat of a pleaser, someone who avoided confrontation. Over time, that approach might have allowed resentments to fester unaddressed. By 1997, concerned friends sometimes urged him to consider counseling or another, more proactive step. Whether out of hope or fear, Phil believed he could maintain the delicate balance between a demanding career and a strained marriage. In the final months of his life, those close to him sensed an undercurrent of unease. Although he joked on set and effortlessly delivered comedic gold, he was quieter off camera. Some nights he confided to a friend that Bryn had unpredictable mood swings, leaving him uncertain how to restore harmony at home. On the surface, their public appearances still seemed stable, a couple raising 2 kids in a nice Los Angeles neighborhood. Yet the tension at home evidently weighed on him. According to one longtime colleague, he described 1998 as a year of potential career expansion, a chance to develop new comedy projects and do more voice work, but also a period he hoped to patch up personal conflicts. Tragically, that fragile hope was shattered on May 28, 1998. The night began like many others. Phil returned home from a day's work to Bryn, who had been out socializing. Later, after the family went to bed, an argument apparently flared once again. Details remain fuzzy, though some suspect substance-induced tensions. At some point during the early morning hours, Bryn entered the bedroom where Phil slept. She took a gun and, in a horrifying act, shot him multiple times. Almost immediately afterward, it appears that she realized the enormity of what she'd done. She fled the house, called a friend, and eventually returned. As police arrived, she locked herself in another room and took her own life with the same weapon. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. News of Phil Hartman's shocking murder by his wife stunned Hollywood and the broader public. How could such a gentle comedic giant meet so brutal and tragic an end? Media outlets filled the airwaves with speculation about Bryn's mental state, about possible substance abuse, about missed signals that might have prevented the tragedy. The cast of News Radio was devastated. Production halted, and scripts had to be rewritten. Friends from SNL expressed disbelief, mourning a man they knew as calm, collaborative, and deeply caring. His family, including his children, faced an unspeakable grief, losing both parents in a single, violent moment. Fans, for their part, grappled with the jarring realization that a comedic icon, a fixture of warmth and humor, was gone in a manner so antithetical to the laughter he shared. Memorials sprang up, both official and in spontaneous tributes outside the studio where News Radio was filmed. Controversies and historical debates inevitably followed. Some question whether the entertainment industry fosters a culture where mental health crises can remain hidden until they explode. Others pointed to the easy access to firearms, turning this family tragedy into a broader cultural commentary. Psychologists and historians of comedy mused on how comedic brilliance can sometimes overshadow personal turmoil, leaving beloved performers vulnerable in ways fans can't imagine. Some colleagues admitted they had spotted small red flags but felt uncertain how to intervene in a marriage. The public conversation about domestic violence, substance abuse, and mental health took on fresh urgency in the wake of Hartman's death, though it also risked turning the tragedy into a spectacle. Even years later, debates linger about what more could have been done, or whether this heartbreak was in some way tragically inevitable. In the immediate aftermath, Hollywood paused to honor him. Tributes at the Emmys, tearful segments on talk shows, and heartfelt eulogies from castmates testified to his gentle spirit. News Radio paid tribute by dedicating an episode to him, writing his character out with care while grieving on and off camera. Even within comedic circles, his name became somewhat mythic, a man whose comedic gifts were overshadowed by the shocking manner of his demise. Modern audiences should care about Phil Hartman's legacy because it underscores vital lessons on mental health, empathy, and the illusions of celebrity. His comedic style remains relevant. Rewatching old SNL skits or News Radio episodes reveals timeless humor, grounded in sincerity and pitch-perfect timing. Yet the tragedy that ended his life underscores how comedic brilliance and warm personality do not automatically shield a person from darkness at home. Recognizing that contradiction fosters greater compassion, pushing us to ask, how can we as a society support those who bring us joy but may privately be in turmoil? For future entertainers, Hartman's story offers a cautionary tale about boundaries, about the significance of addressing personal crises before they spiral irreversibly. Dear viewer, to hold this story of Phil Hartman in your heart, cherishing the laughter he gifted the world, while honoring the bittersweet reminder that even the brightest comedic star can be dimmed by human pain. Let his memory fuel our appreciation for those who bring us joy, while also recalling the compassion we owe them beyond the spotlight. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching.